Hello everyone, this is Getting Social, and today we have the pleasure of interviewing a talented filmmaker by the name of Stephen Olander. So of course, we're gonna talk movies, gonna have a little bit of fun. So without further ado, it's time to get social. All right, Stephen. Well, thank you for joining the show. This is the Getting Social podcast. And again, thank you for your time. I think this is going to be a very interesting episode. We're going to talk about movies. We're going to talk about movie making. And we're going to talk about people who actually enjoy going to the movies. But first, I want to ask you how you're doing both mentally and physically. And also tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and your experience in the movie business.
Well, I am actually enjoying this time off because right when this hit, my regular job as a toolmaker at one of the big three automakers was crazy busy. And after work, about 3 to 4 days a week, sometimes 5, I work out after work. Then I run some errands and then come home and eat. And then sometimes I'm working on film stuff, whether if it's preparing for a shoot or if I'm doing some editing or if I'm on the phone talking with a producer or somebody else within the film industry on a project we're working on. So my days are pretty busy and usually I'm okay with that and I enjoy it. But like I said, my job at the auto manufacturer, that was just crazy busy. And I even told my wife, I said, I need time off. And I wanted to wait till warmer weather since I live in Ohio. And I didn't want to take vacation yet, not in March. So this came along and they said, okay, you have to stay home. I said, thank you. And so I don't have to burn up my vacation time. And with unemployment and the $600 unemployment bump that we get, additional, I'm fine. As well as, my regular income allows me to have a cushion. So I'm enjoying the time off.
Well, that's good to hear, man. I mean, I think a lot of us are enjoying the extra time. If you do have, obviously, the luxury of getting that extra time, some people are even busier than before, depending on the industry that you're in, especially like, the hospitals, the nurses, the people that are fighting right now in the trenches. And thank you to them, a big thank you to them, because they are actually like working twice as hard now to make sure that we're safe. So a big shout out to them. But now that you have the extra time, Stephen, have you been exploring maybe a little bit more on the movie making side? Have you thought of maybe some new ideas that you were putting off because of the lack of time, that now that you have the extra time that you're looking into maybe putting into motion now?
Well, I've been taking time, cherishing doing nothing for a little bit. And
nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Yeah. And Saturday or Monday, I can't remember. Sometime within the past few days, I was on a telephone call with the art director from Northcoast Studios, of which the latest project I worked on, Embrace the Twilight. I was director of photography of the USA unit on that. And we're working on the final theatrical edit of the film. So we had a discussion on certain things we want to do with the edit on that. I have a theatrical trailer for that film that I just finished, and I need to send it off to our composer. Let me get his name here. I don't want to butcher his last name. And he is in Argentina, which is just goes to show, the wonder of the internet.
I know.
His name is Mariano Salino, and he is absolutely fantastic. He scored the whole film. And he's going to be scoring the theatrical trailer for it as well.
Nice. And
I have a little 6-minute for fun project that I did with some of the local actors. There's a group of local actors that I work with. I've worked with on various films, and they like to do something every month just for fun, and also to practice their their art and for the creative outlet. Because when you are a talented creative person like that, you can't just sit around and do nothing. So I shot a couple of projects with them, and I'm editing one of them. I've got probably about another half hour or an hour to go on editing on that, and then we'll be putting that online. That's all that I have going on at the moment.
Well, that's a lot. I mean, hey,
there's other stuff coming too.
And you said that you wanted to take a break and everything, but you are pretty busy now.
Yes.
Yeah. But go ahead.
Actually, come to think of it, that reminds me, I am also working on a TV pilot. There's an actress in Michigan, a very talented actress I've known for a while now, and she came up with a phenomenal idea. And I said, well, let me kick that around and see what I can do about writing a script for that. And my mind, being a filmmaker, I'm thinking movie, and she said she didn't know if it would be a narrative film or if it would be a documentary. And I'm thinking, well, I don't have time to go to Michigan and follow her around to shoot this documentary. So it's going to have to be a narrative film. And I spent a week on that, and my brain said, don't know what I'm going to do with this. So I said that to her, and she said, well, my dream is to be a television actress. And that really turned the light bulb on in my head. And I said, oh, as a television show, this would be phenomenal. So I said, tell you what, let's stop talking right now. My brain is exploding. Let me write this stuff down. So I wrote down 3 pages of ideas, certain elements that need to be in the story, certain way of telling the story, and elements of shooting the story as well. And I sent that to her, and she got very excited. She fortunately has some people to take this to once it's written.
Oh, wow.
And so this could be a really good opportunity for both of us. If this gets picked up, I have 3.5 years before I retire from my regular job.
Hey, that would be perfect timing.
Working my regular job and working on that would be to be writing episodes for it. But if they want to say, hey, we'd like to have you on as director and we're going to give you these 7 figures, I will leave my job instantly.
Hey, come on now. Of course. That's the dream right there,
Exactly.
But speaking of dreams, I think in these situations, like as artists, we tend to look at specific, I guess, situations or life-changing situations as opportunities to tell stories, to write, and in this situation right now, which is very particular, if you were to write a movie right now about the situation, tell us about what you think the movie would be about. What would be the plot of that movie?
Well, we are not through all of this yet, which means there's an awful lot to happen yet. So we don't know exactly how this phase of our lives is going to go. So because of that, I don't know what the impact is going to be. We still we're almost, if you've heard the expression before, how far into a forest can you go? Halfway. Because once you get to the middle, then you're on your way out.
Wow.
So I think we're not quite in the middle yet. We're really close. We're just about there. I mean, we're probably within feet of it. And then we'll start our journey out of it. And that is also that will shape the other half of this event in our lives. And at that time, when this is over, then I'll be able to know what kind of the full impact of this, actually, I can say, of every element of our lives. I expect us to have, pretty much what we had before. It'll be a lot like 9/11. You can't imagine what life is going to be like after that. And then years later, life is pretty much the same. There's been a few things that have changed a little, but we've adapted to those just fine. But other than that, most things still happen the way they did before.
How do you think people are now going to watch movies in the future?
Well, being from an older generation, I really enjoy the theater experience.
Yep.
And to this day, as a matter of fact, the Sunday before the Monday that the stay-at-home order was to take effect, my wife and I went out to a movie. And we were in there with one other couple in the theater.
Was it a matinee?
And, yes.
Okay.
But anyways, I don't know. like myself, I will not refrain from going to theaters. I will not cut down on the amount of time that I spend in movie theaters. Here again, that's my generation. That's what we did. And I really enjoy the experience. Also, I have a pretty good immune system, and I don't get sick very often.
The last movie that we saw, my wife and I, was Bad Boys.
I haven't seen that yet. Looks pretty good though.
Yeah, very entertaining. Very entertaining. It's a fun movie, and we enjoyed it. And before that, we watched 1917. I'm sure you watched that one.
That was a phenomenal movie.
It was amazing.
I watched that for a few reasons. One, as you can imagine, I wanted to analyze how it was shot while I was watching the film.
Yep.
Regular people such as yourself, go to see a movie. I go to the theater to watch the film.
Yeah.
And I was aware of the film having been shot to look like it was one long continuous take. Now with the movie, Michael Keaton was in Birdman.
Yep.
At first they were saying, it was all one long take. Well, it wasn't, but it was shot to look like that. There are a lot of tricks to hide the seam between each take. And I know what those are. So when I went to see 1917, I'm watching for those. And sometimes there was a shot that was so long, I'm thinking, okay, did I miss the seam between the two takes and everything? And found out some of the takes were, 35, 45 seconds long, and sometimes 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, especially for a feature film.
Especially for a feature film in that kind of setting with like war and stuff. Yeah.
That was another reason I wanted to see it, was because with Birdman, I can understand trying to make it look like all one long take, but an epic war film like that, you talk about having guts to try to make that whole thing look like it was done in one take. It's phenomenal. So I mean, that is a real filmmaking lesson. On YouTube, they happen to have a whole bunch of behind the scenes shots of them shooting that thing. And to see the camera mounted in this fixture hung on the end of a crane, and it gets the high shot, and then it comes on down, and then a guy on each side of the camera grabs the frame that the camera is mounted on and then picks it off of the saddle that's on the end of the crane, and then they run with it after the behind the actors, and just phenomenal work.
It's amazing. I actually pay attention to these things also, not as in depth as you, but I do, because I was telling my wife, because my wife had a hard time really like enjoying it like I did, and my sister-in-law fell asleep. that says a lot. And I'm like, are you serious? How do you fall asleep? It's like, I didn't really get it. I'm like, okay, I get that you don't get it. You know what I mean? But for me, I was like, man, this is amazing. The acting to me was also phenomenal. Yes. And like you were saying, like I did watch some behind the scenes and how they did this, and with a lot of rehearsals. That's kind of like how you perfect scenes like these.
Yes.
Right. Did you ever have to shoot something remotely as close to this?
Last year, I entered a contest. It was the single take challenge.
Nice.
And you were required to shoot a short film in a single take, up to 8 minutes long. Now, here, 1917, with all the experience of the entire crew, seasoned actors, and mega bucks, they're still shooting a shot that is maybe 2 minutes long at the most.
Yeah.
So the funny thing is this challenge came about when I was considering doing something like that, trying something like that. And it's like, and I stumbled across that contest. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to do this. Okay. So I came up with a really neat story idea in my head. And I contacted 2 actresses I know, and they were so excited for the opportunity to try such a task. And I wrote the script. And I sent them the script, and I told them, I said, okay, this is the script. This shows you what I want communicated at in every location that we're shooting in within this house. And I said, you don't have to stick to this word for word. I said, you can ad lib if you want, play off of each other so that it looks natural and everything. Mm-hmm. I said, but as long as this idea is communicated in this part and that idea is communicated when we get to that part, I said, that'll be great. So we set up, and it was to be shot. It was a nighttime scene. It was like 3 a.m. or something like that is what it is in the story. Mm-hmm. And so we shot at night, set up, and we were ready to start practicing at 9:00. And we did 2 practice runs. I had a lighting guy that I needed to run around and control some lighting. Mm-hmm. And so we had to work out the timing with that and how to stay, have the lighting guy stay out of the shot and everything. And after 2 times of practicing it, it was like, okay, let's give this a shot. So we did it 9 times. And sometimes we went through the entire thing. Sometimes I stopped it because I messed up with the camera. Maybe I bumped myself with the camera or something like that because it was on a stabilizer. And sometimes the actors would just kind of, okay, I messed up.
Yeah.
Because they realized that they lost their train of thought or something. Yeah. And so anyways, it took 9 times. And I said, cut, print. And everybody was excited. And I took the memory card out of the camera, put it in my laptop, and had it play for everybody. And while I went to the kitchen, start breaking down some equipment, and I'm listening to the 2 actors and the lighting person oohing and eyeing and loving this. Oh, that's so cool through the whole thing. Oh, and it's like, yeah, it sounds like I got it.
Nice.
And I entered the contest with the first time I've ever done a long take like that. The actual scene or the film, with not counting in the credits, is 4 minutes and 45 seconds long. So it's almost a 5-minute shot. And I was a finalist in the competition. I did not win, but for doing that for the first time ever and being a finalist in a international competition, which by the way took place in Florida.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Which part?
Exactly what city it was in Florida. I'll get that information to you another time. But because I'll be entering it again this year. And they have a showing of their 15 finalists. And I believe the audience also gets to vote. So there's a audience award as well.
And if anybody wants to see that film, is it available to the public or no?
I'm entering it in film festivals right now.
Oh, okay.
When I get done entering it in film festivals, then I'll have it available for anybody to watch.
Nice, very, very nice. Well, congrats on that, man. Finalist in a global, worldwide competition is pretty cool.
I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of entries there were.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then to be in the top 15, first time trying something like that. Yeah, I am really very pleased.
Nice, man. I actually went to film school when I was in my 20s. I don't remember, probably mid 20s. And it wasn't like a full blown like a specialty school. It was just like some classes that I was taking because that's when I started developing the love for the love for movie making. So my first experience as in movies was as an actor because of my experience, or I guess my career, if you want to call it that way, in music. I was asked to play a role in a movie. A Haitian movie. I'm like, okay. I enjoyed it so much. I was like, oh man, I want to do a lot of that. Not only the acting, but I was paying attention to the director. I was looking at the script and the writer and stuff like that, and looking at what the other actors were doing. And I was very vocal. Obviously I asked permission to be vocal, and they enjoyed, my input. So that was good. But then that's when I took a liking to filmmaking, and then I went to school and kind of like learn a little bit. And my final project I remember was, and we shot at that school, we shot with film. And wow. I think it was a 2-minute film. It was called The Super Parking Lot Man. So it was just a superhero that was rescuing women from being assaulted in the parking lot, basically. So I had to shoot multiple angles. Like there was a long shot. There were some certain things that you had to do. I don't remember exactly what they were, but it was a long shot and there were a few, close ups or whatever. They told you exactly what had to be included in there in those 2 minutes. And it was a lot of fun. I wish I still had that. The editing was really what I struggled with. But I think overall, even like costumes or whatever, and the actors that we had were pretty cool. It was a fun experience. Mm-hmm. Speaking of directing, who's your favorite director?
The generation that I am, of course, the usual Steven Spielberg, George Lucas. Mm-hmm. It's George Lucas's fault that I am a filmmaker now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was 13 when Star Wars came out.
Okay.
And I had to find out how everything was done. And there was a fantastic magazine out at that time that hadn't been out long called Starlog.
Uh-huh.
And they had all kinds of interviews with people in the film industry, special effects and special effects makeup. And,
uh-huh.
Technical effects and stuff and everything. And so I got to read about everybody and find out exactly how everything was done from that, as well as a couple of books that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And another book that was just on special effects that had come out long before Star Wars even.
Mm-hmm.
And once I found out how everything was done, it's like, yeah, I got to do that. But I'm 13 years old. I'm living in Ohio. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm just a little kid. Nobody's going to hire me. I have no experience. I'm old enough for anything, but I am going to learn. So I kept researching filmmaking and getting my hands on everything I could read. We had no internet yet, and going to the library and getting books there. And Starlog magazines, as those came out, I got them all. And once in a great while, there would be something on television back then. You only had 5 channels.
Wow.
Once in a great while, there would be a documentary on a film being made or something like that. So I watched that.
What about actors? Who are your favorite actors?
These are the actors. If they're in a film, I will go see it. It doesn't matter what the title of the film is or what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
Harrison Ford, of course.
Okay. That's because of the Star Wars thing.
Actually, probably because it started with Star Wars. He was also in American Graffiti, which was done in 1974.
Okay.
Before Star Wars, and that was actually probably his first major film.
Okay.
But that was also shot by George Lucas.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, his character Indiana Jones is what really solidified it for me. So many little elements in that film. Again, as Han Solo too, where in Return of the Jedi, he's going to try to sneak around somewhere, and they're out in the woods, and just as he's getting ready to leave, and Princess Leia says, "Be careful," he says, "Hey, it's me." He said, "I'm my wife all the time," and she.
That's interesting. I like Harrison Ford a lot too. I like Indiana Jones a lot. The Temple of Doom. I've probably seen this movie. I don't know how many times. A lot.
Yes, that seems to be on most of the time, most every weekend or so.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yep. Love that
during
movie.
The winter.
But for me, go ahead.
Yeah. Also, Sylvester Stallone.
Mm-hmm.
Not that he's a character actor. Every character he plays, with the exception of what was the movie he did with Dolly Parton? He was a cowboy, and he did one other one called "Stop or My Mother Will Shoot."
Yeah,
those were 2 comedies that failed very badly.
Yeah,
but other than that, every other film that he has done, he always plays Sylvester Stallone.
Yep,
just like Clint Eastwood is always Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
he's always got the same voice and everything.
Yeah.
So, but the thing I admire about Sylvester Stallone, well, first of all, with Rocky, he wrote that himself, and he shopped it around to like 24 different producers, 12 different producers. I can't remember if it was 12 or 24 different producers, a lot. And he finally found a studio that said, "Yeah, we think we want to make this. And we're going to cast, so-and-so as Rocky." And he's like, "No, the only way I will sell this script is when you cast me as Rocky." And there was a couple of places that turned him down for that reason. And finally, he stuck to his guns. He had nothing else to lose. And, he was nobody and he had nothing at the time. And by sticking to his guns, he got that role because he knew how good he was. It's not arrogant if you can back it up. Mm-hmm. If you can back it up, it's fact.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And even though he had that speech impediment from the nerve damage that he had as a kid, that amplified his character. So if he was going to start in Hollywood, that was the perfect character for him. Whereas any other role, they would say, well, we don't like the way you talk. We don't like the, funny thing over
mm-hmm.
here. But in the context of a boxer, you expect that. So that just, like I said, perfect role for him. And to this day, he's admitted to, and we all know that he's used steroids, to bulk up for the films and everything. But even at that, for a man who is 70 years old, steroids or not, you've got to lift the weight.
Yeah, you got to do the work. Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen videos of him working out. The man is an animal.
Yeah, he is.
He works out. And if I know a lot of people, and my son included, his generation, as soon as they hit 30, they think life is over. I'm old now. I'm 30. Well, like I said, I'm past 50. Mm-hmm. I'm lifting weights. I'm running 3 miles. You know? And part of that, I will actually credit Sylvester Stallone for the inspiration from him.
Oh, that's nice. That's cool.
Work out and everything like this. Like, oh my God. Same thing with Harrison Ford when he was going to be doing Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I saw an interview with the fitness expert who was charged with getting him ready for the film. Mm-hmm. And they asked him, how much did it take, to get Harrison Ford ready for this film? What kind of regimen did you have to put him on and everything? And very impressively, the guy said, he's Harrison Ford. He's always ready. He says it doesn't take much. He always keeps himself in shape. And that's something I noticed with Harrison Ford. He knows he is his product. So he always keeps his product ready to go. And again, for a man his age, as a matter of fact, the scene where he is in the warehouse towards the beginning of the film with all of those wooden crates in there and he's looking for something. I saw behind the scenes where he is rehearsing the scene and he has to hop up all of these wooden crates and he's probably 35, 50 feet in the air when he gets to the top. And he turns around. Was that what you wanted? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. So then he just runs right back down and then he's ready to run back up again at his age. Holy cow.
Yeah. So that says a lot. That's the thing.
Yes.
That's the thing. And that's the hard work you put in. And then that a lot of people don't get to see. So what message do you have now for not only moviegoers, but let's say aspiring actors and actresses and directors that, out of work or not knowing really where this is going to go? Obviously, you've already said, you're pretty optimistic that we're going to go back to at least some sort of normalcy in terms of the movie industry. But what message do you have now for moviegoers and actors and actresses and directors and all that?
I'm expecting there to be a lot more YouTube channels as a result of this. People finally having the opportunity, like I said, you can't go to work. And if you ever had the inspiration to do this stuff and you just never had the time, now you got the time. Mm-hmm. And I believe a lot of people are exploring that. Mm-hmm. A lot of people have made quarantine videos. Mm-hmm. And little stories with those quarantine videos. And they may have never done anything like that before. They've maybe vlogged before or just made, video messages before and everything, but never a narrative story. And now they've actually thought up a story and then they shot it and found out, while I'm shooting this as a story, I got to do this, or I have to know about that. Mm-hmm. And then they get more intrigued and they're going to say, hey, this was pretty cool. I can't wait to do the next one. So I'm expecting there to be a lot more YouTube channels as a result of it. And also I'm hoping that a lot of people are watching movies that they normally wouldn't watch, because there's a lot of films that they either don't get the publicity that they deserve, or they just can't get the publicity they deserve because maybe they don't have big names attached to them or something like that. There's a number of independent films that I really enjoyed. One was called Maudie, and Maudie was about a woman in Nova Scotia, Canada. She was a famous local artist. She had some kind of disability. She had arthritis really bad through her whole body at a young age, and she had some other issues. And she answered an ad for a guy who wanted somebody to clean his house. And he also had some kind of disabilities, mentally, I think. Mm-hmm. And he provided for himself by selling firewood and fish.
Okay.
But he needed somebody to clean his house. So she wanted her independence from where she was at. So she went to move in and be his live-in house cleaner. Mm-hmm. And she helped him out. She noticed that he didn't have any kind of a billing system for his clients. So she tactfully brought up, well, I could do that for you. And she made up she would make a card up with all of the details on it, formal for an invoice. And on the back side of it, she would do a little piece of artwork just to make it a pleasant thing instead of a bill.
Oh, that's cool.
And somebody from New York who vacationed there, from New York City, she received one of these bills and noticed the artwork was really something special. And she pursued the woman to find out, where she lived and everything, and talked to them about buying some of her artwork. And once she found out somebody wanted her artwork, because she didn't think it was anything special. She just enjoyed doing it because it looked nice. It was pleasant to look at. It was a creative outlet for her and everything. And then the local people discovered her as well. And then people were coming from all over to buy her artwork. It's an absolutely amazing story. There's no special effects or anything like that. There's no dazzling fight scene or anything like that. It's just all story, a real story, because it's based on real people. Very interesting film, something you don't find in your major theaters and stuff. That was we have a chain here in Cleveland, Ohio. It's Cleveland Cinemas, and they own mostly, I would say they own about 5 or 6 theaters, and 90% of them are the old, small-time individual theaters that were built in the 50s or the 40s. And they show a lot of independent films like that. And that's where I was able to see that. Another independent film that I really enjoyed was Foxtrot. And there's another film called Foxtrot Alpha or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was called. But this is not that. It's just Foxtrot. And it was shot in Israel, and it had English subtitles. And I don't have a problem with subtitled movies. Yeah. I saw the trailer, and it looked pretty good because it's got elements. It's got heart-wrenching elements, and it's got comedic elements. Mm-hmm. So, you can't just have the story be like this all the time. Mm-hmm. You have to have some comic relief, and then some of that and a comic relief. And so you have the contrast between the emotions. And the comedy in there, being made in Israel, it's a different culture, and they have a different idea of what comedy is. And it's hysterical. And same thing for the dramatic parts. Again, because it's Israel, they go through things for a lot of them on a daily basis that we'll never go through in our lives here in the United States. So that was a new experience. And that's another film I would highly recommend.
Well, Stephen, I mean, it was a pleasure talking to you, man, and discussing movies. Again, like I think this is one of the things that there's going to be pluses and minuses. Like you said, a lot of creativity with the YouTube channels, a lot of opportunities for storytelling, and hopefully we can go back to the movies soon. You know, that's probably one of the first things you probably will do when we're I guess allowed to go back to the movies. And again, thank you for your time. If you have a last word you want to share with the millions and millions of people that are going to be watching and listening to this podcast.
Well, Jeff, I really want to thank you for having me on the show. This has been an absolute ball, and I'm really glad that you asked me to be on the show. This was great. Hopefully, you have me on the show again sometime, and maybe then we could talk about what I'm working on right now, which is a TV pilot that I'm developing and writing with an up-and-coming actress in Michigan. She is just fantastic. She came up with the story idea and asked me if I could develop it into an actual show. And so we're working on that together. And hopefully, if you're able to have me on a show again, we can talk about that. And that will hopefully be in full swing. Wouldn't that be great? Okay. So thanks again. This has been great. And good night.